Well, hello and welcome. My name is John Miller. I'm the Executive Director here at the Shippensburg Historical Society. And today I just wanted to kind of give you an update on one of the projects that I've been working on during the pandemic here at the Shippensburg Historical Society. I know we have the college archives, which are an excellent resource for researchers. And I know we also have the Coy Public Library, which also has an outstanding collection of resources. And here at the Historical Society, we have a great collection of localized histories, whether it be genealogy or just local history in general. But I was thinking there's something that's missing, something that we could pretty much work on in order to gain more researchers in here, and that is the fact that we were missing out on a large library. So after the passing of my dear friend Ted Alexander, who was the chief historian at Antietam National Battlefield, and seeing where his library went as far as like Waynesboro and I believe other places in Greencastle, I went ahead and decided I wanted to donate my library here to the Shippensburg Historical Society. That way it gives you, the researcher, additional resources. That way if you're researching, for an example, the American Civil War, well, we have tons of that here as far as how it affected the Cumberland Valley, as well as all three of the invasions that took place in the North. And then we also have our French Indian War collection, World War I, World War II, and yes, and of course you can't forget about the Indian Wars that took place in the Midwest. Because all of this does kind of tie into Shippensburg, simply because of the fact that we've had local men who mustered into military service and fought, in some cases, never returned home. So what type of resources am I talking about that might benefit you, the researcher? Well, over here on the Civil War side, we'll go ahead and start with that. So if you're researching, say, some of the Virginia regiments that were here in Shippensburg, for an example, I have a good collection of out-of-print Virginia regimental histories. And many of these were published back in the 90s, and they were only published up to like 1,000 a piece. And if you go on eBay, some of these regimental histories, they can go for $500 to upwards to $1,000, depending on if there's anybody interested in buying them. But the nice thing about these is it gives you a breakdown, as well as in the back of the book, a roster, as well as some of the information with some of those men. So these are really great resources. Now, if you're researching, say, Cumberland Valley, and you want to know what daily life was like during the American Civil War, as an example, well, look no further, because we do have some resources on that as well. We have the diary of Rachel Cormany in here, and she was a Chambersburg resident, and she recorded a lot of day-by-day activities that took place in the Cumberland Valley. But also, if you're researching, say, the Pennsylvania Campaign of 1863, we have some excellent resources here from cavalry movements and operations during the campaign. Or if you're interested in, say, the New York State National Guard, because some of those guys came through here in Shippensburg, we have a copy of my book here that has the regimental breakdowns as well as photographs. And these guys either were assigned to the Middle Department out of Baltimore, Maryland, or the Department of the Susquehanna, which was pretty much headquartered in Harrisburg during the campaign. So we have a lot of really interesting resources on that. If you're into, say, the retreat from Gettysburg, for example, we have Eric Wittenberg's book, John Schilt. We also have another publication that I've did, the Battle of Monterey Pass, the only battle fought on both sides of the Mason-Dixon line. And so I wanted to make sure that we had resources, because sometimes local history takes place on a much larger, in the region, and in some cases on the national and international levels. So with the Civil War aspect of it, we have a lot of great resources. If you're thinking about becoming an authentic campaigner, as an example, we have additional resources to show you what would have been issued, how to find some of those issuances, and as far as putting an impression together. And for that, we have several books on that. This was something that I compiled years ago when I worked at the state of Maryland, and it kind of gives you a rundown of some of the things that Union and Confederate soldiers would have worn as far as uniforms. If you're thinking about doing artillery impression, this is some of the things going by original photographs with notes. So a lot of effort went into these. And of course, I have if anybody remembers the Columbia Rifles, I'm even donating a lot of their research materials here, as well as some of the information I pulled off of the Authentic Campaigner. Now, one of the things I always hear is that, when it comes to people who do reenacting, we'll always hear that the North was always industrialized and the South really didn't have anything. And sometimes that's further from the truth, because my good friends, David Burke, as well as Craig Berry, they have actually researched how the Confederacy received a lot of supplies from the British Army contractors. And these books are really good because they show you examples of what some of the things that were imported into the Confederacy. And plus, some of the Northern troops also imported a lot of the supplies from England as well. So if you're looking for uniforms or first-hand accounts day by day, we got you definitely covered on that. As far as some of the resources we have over here, we have a good selection of books with the French and Indian War. The latest by David Preston, dealing with Braddock's defeat. Very good. But if you're looking for first-hand information, we have a lot of that too, because of the fact that we have some of the old college books, and this one here is an example. It's called The First American Frontier, but these are letters that were written by Brigadier General John Forbes. And in this book here, we do have Carlisle information, Shippensburg, Fort Loudon, as well as other information that was actually written by him, the observer, as well as the commander. So we have a lot of great information on that. Revolutionary War, for an example, we had Jim Crist do a talk on this last year, the battle or the massacre at Paoli. And here, there's some information on Shippensburg's most famous Indian fighter, Samuel Brady, as well as the Brady family who participated in this battle. So, a lot of really great information in here. Let's see here. Whiskey Rebellion. That's right. George Washington, he stayed briefly here in Shippensburg as well as in Carlisle while he was putting down the Whiskey Rebellion, making his way out toward western Pennsylvania. If you're interested in the War of 1812, I have a lot of resources on the burning of Washington. As a matter of fact, that was one of the books I was trying to write before the pandemic. Actually, I got the manuscript done, it just needs to be edited. But these are valuable resources for you, the researcher. If you're interested in the Indian Wars and say the 7th Michigan Cavalry, or not the 7th Michigan Cavalry, but the 7th U.S. Cavalry, a lot of people think that Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer was in command of this regiment, but in fact it was Shippensburg's own resident who grew up here in Shippensburg, Colonel Sturgis, and he was the one that was in charge. But there's a lot of information in here about campaigning with Custer after the American Civil War, all the way up until his defeat at the Battle of Little Bighorn. Additional resources, if you're into World War I and you need to do a World War I project, we have a database here, or the data book of some of the battles that took place with casualties and stuff like that. So very valuable resources for people. Now, one of the things I want to do with this room here is eventually we're going to have a computer that sits over here. That way a researcher can come in. If he's looking into something here and he wants to actually take the footnote to see where the information came from, he can go ahead and just jump on the computer real quick, take a look at it, and then from there he can print the information out using our printer here. So just want to make sure that, you know, I know we have the library, I know we have the college, but also I want to make sure that we have good resources here for our researchers to use. And if anything can be of value to help people, that's what we want to do. And that's kind of going into the rebranding of the Historical Society here. I know that the first rebranding was more along the lines of the History Center. This room here is going to be basically our brand new education and resources for American history studies. So until then, Shippensburg, my name is John Miller. I'm the executive director here. Hopefully starting in March, we're going to go back to the reservation system here. That way we can start bringing people in here to do some of the research that they are looking for or that they need to do. So until then, stay safe everyone. We'll see you next time.